Hello, Mike Acco, and welcome to this session of Brown Bag Biography, the longest running seminar series at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. This is talk number 775. They started in the mid-'80s, and they were originated by George Simpson, the Emeritus Director of the Center for Biographical Research, and are currently being organized and advertised and presented by Paige Rasmussen, the managing editor and manager of the for biography, and the manager of the Center for Biographical Research, and Zoe Sprout, who's the graduate assistant and who has done a great deal in terms of the advertising and has a definite role in the one we're holding today. This particular event is going to be co-sponsored by Hamilton Library, the Academy for Creative Media, the School of Communications, and the Departments of Political Science, Women's Studies, and Ethnic Studies, and the Center for Oral History. Before I hand things over to Zoe to introduce our speakers for today, I'd just like to mention a number of other things. The first is next week, same time, same place, Nandita Sharma will be giving, who is in the Department of Sociology here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, will be giving a talk on nationalism and the transformation of land into sovereign territory. We have 3 or 4 more sessions still to go in this particular semester. And if you'd like to find out about the individual events and more details, Zoe is putting a link into the chat that will allow you to get on the CBR mailing list or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And Zoe very definitely makes sure that each week there is more information about the upcoming events. I'd also like to mention The Value of Hawaii 3, Hulihia, The Turning, which is a publication of the Center for Biographical Research monograph series. It was co-edited by Noelani Goodyear Kaupua, Jonathan K. Kamakawaigo Ole Osorio, Aiko Yamashiro, who will be giving a brown bag talk in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and myself. This book contains about 60 to 70 essays, brief essays about the current state of Hawaii, how we're going to be dealing with coming out of the pandemic, and how we're going to be able to rethink the future of Hawaii, or certainly different ways that we should be doing that. The book is available through the University of Hawaii Press. You can get a copy, a hard copy for $24.95, but in keeping with our vision for the book as a way of starting discussions and engaging in some ways the public sphere, the book is also available to you free as a download from the University of Hawaii Press through Scholarspace. So you can have the entire book or download the individual essays. And Zoe will put that link up in the chat as well too. In addition to that, the Hawaii Council of the Humanities has been sponsoring a series of public discussions of the issues that are coming up in the Value of Hawaii 3 through its Try Think series. The next event is going to be April 14th at 6 p.m. and it's going to be running for the next 4 or 5 months. What happens is it sets up 3 discussion groups which use essays from the Value of Hawaii 3, Hulihia, as a starting point, but largely conducts itself as a group discussion. I urge you to take a look at that. Zoe is also putting that link up to the website and registration information for that as well. As far as the procedures for the event today, because of security and various other reasons, what will happen is we will have our speakers speak. Then if you have questions or comments that you would like to raise, if you put those in the chat box, and we will pass those on to them after they've finished doing the more sort of formal portion of their remarks. If you wish to engage with them directly, ask the question directly, we can in fact switch on your mic and switch on your camera, but you do need to know that this is being recorded, so you actually will appear in the eventual recording that we make available sort of online. So just as long as you know that. So you can either ask your question through the chat, or you can actually ask to be able to enter into the discussion with video and microphone on. I think that covers virtually everything that I need to provide for beforehand. And so I will pass things over to Zoe Sprout to introduce our speakers for today.
Great, thank you. Today, I am so thrilled to introduce Inez Anderson and Jessie Hearther, who are going to be talking about consuming, creating, and finding a voice in the generation of media makers. Inez Anderson and Jessie Hearther are youth filmmakers who have been working together since they met at a Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking camp in 2018. Their work focuses on a range of prevalent social issues, including intersectional feminism, gun control, and LGBT+ rights. Inez and Jessie plan to continue social justice advocacy through filmmaking after high school and throughout the rest of their lives. Inez and Jessie's films have been screened at film festivals and competitions such as the Hawaii International Film Festival Student Showcase and Daniel K. Inouye Institute Student Film Initiative, and have contributed to projects for the Hawaii Council for the Humanities, Honolulu Rainbow Film Festival, and Honolulu Filmmakers Collective. Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking is a feminist nonprofit organization committed to gender justice in filmmaking through an intersectional lens. On a personal note, I've been looking forward to hearing from Inez and Jessie for quite a long time because it's increasingly clear how important youth activism, engagement, and creativity is in the 21st century. This younger generation has become adept at shaping our political moment in innovative ways, including through filmmaking, which Inez and Jessie are going to get to discuss today. Their broad impact is especially evident in our wide array of co-sponsors for this event, which brings together groups from across the University of Hawaii system. These filmmakers, in doing their important work, are joining the ranks of other powerful and outspoken young activists like Emma Gonzalez and Greta Thunberg, and I can't wait to hear more about their work and see what they'll do next. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Inez and Jessie.
Thank you so much, Zoe. Okay, I'll start sharing my screen. Can everybody see that okay? All right, so as Zoe so nicely introduced us, I'm Inez and I'm here with Jessie, and we're going to be discussing consuming, creating, and finding a voice in the generation of media makers. So we're going to be discussing how we became involved in filmmaking, our personal journeys with filmmaking and social justice, and talk a little bit about the level of accessibility to filmmaking that today's generation has and what that means for the future. But first, we'll do some quick introductions. So I'll hand it over to Jessie.
Yes, thank you to Zoe for that wonderful introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Hearther. I'm 18 years old. My pronouns are they and she, and I go to Radford High School. I'm really happy to be here with you guys today.
And I'm Inez Anderson. I use they, them pronouns. I'm 16 and I'm currently a junior at Roosevelt High School. And me and Jessie have been friends and filmmaking partners for about 4 years now. So we've been working together for a while. Starting out, just to talk about representation in popular media. When I first got into, the moment that I first got into filmmaking was, I think around the time I was about 11 or 12 and watching like the first few Marvel movies that were coming out. And it was really cool because it's, you know, this blockbuster thing, so much work goes into it. So many people and lives come together to create this one like piece of media that's loved by so many people. And I really wanted to be, you know, a part of that. I really wanted to be involved in that. And so that's sort of what got me interested in filmmaking. But, you know, very quickly you start to realize that there's not a lot of people who look like you, or I guess who look like me, and that I can really relate to in franchises like Marvel or Star Wars. So it's sort of, it was definitely a challenge to love something so much and want to be a part of it and be a part of creating it, but then realizing that you might not be welcome there.
And like Inez, I also grew up with the Avengers and Star Wars. And the whole reason why I wanted to get into filmmaking was going to see The Winter Soldier with my sister in like 2013 and just walking out of the theater and being like, wow, I want to make something that makes people feel the way that this movie just made me feel. So that's what got me into filmmaking. And I've always wanted to be like, I'm gonna make a Marvel movie, I'm gonna make a Star Wars movie. But then the older I've gotten, I've realized, why would I insert representation in a place that has denied it for so long when I could actually be a part of a project that immediately is going to involve representation? So I've kind of not given up on that dream. I've just adapted it to how I am now. So I want to make representation for everyone instead of just trying to add it into these places that never really wanted it.
Yeah, and that's it's a shared experience that we have. I think the first time that I really felt represented on the big screen, or I guess on the small screen, since it's a TV show and not actually a movie, was in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the show, not the movie. We don't talk about the movie, but it was incredible because it's just this show, just like any other show, like an animated children's show, but that takes place in a world that reflects my own culture and cultures that I am surrounded with every day here in Hawaii. And it was really incredible to see. So as much as Marvel movies sort of motivate me to do better than them in terms of representation, I think Avatar is sort of what I strive towards in terms of creating something that is so loved and so important for so many people because of the representation that it provides. So I think what we're kind of moving towards is that me and Jessie both had this moment of just like, we can't just join this. We can't be a part of what's already existing. We're going to have to create the media that we want to see in the world on our own. If we want to see any of this, if we want to see any of the change, if we want to see the representation that we needed.
And with filmmaking nowadays, it's so accessible if you think about it for the generation that Inez and I are part of. As you can see, some of the applications on the screen are what I've grown up with, just like making fun videos or creating films like Windows Live Movie Maker. I made a video project in 4th grade in California. On iMovie, I made a bunch of fake YouTube videos and I never posted them. It was just me making like DIYs and strange things. And Video Star, I would make music videos. And I never realized that I was actively learning all of these media skills because I was having so much fun doing it. And I feel like in our society, sometimes it's like learning isn't seen as very fun when you're in school or doing something. But doing this by myself and in my free time, I realized how much I learned on my own, and all of these apps were free and I could use them at my school, at home, on my phone, on the computer. So it really showed me how accessible filmmaking is nowadays and how these skills can be learned by yourself. You don't have to get some big degree or spend a bunch of money.
Yeah, and I had the same experience. Like when I was younger, I would make like movie trailers or like episodes of like a news show that would never be released anywhere, but it was just fun for me and my friends to make them by ourselves, like with iMovie. And so that was sort of my intro into amateur filmmaking. And obviously we're not the only ones who have had this experience of growing up surrounded by not only media, but also the means to create our own content and our own media. Like pretty much everybody in our generation had this experience of having access to these things and creating our own thing. And today it's even more accessible than it was for us when we were younger, with things like YouTube and TikTok, which are really insane. And I could probably give a whole other talk about this, but like the power that these apps have to create huge platforms to like millions of people without any sort of big budget, without any sort of like special effects, is really incredible. And I can only imagine that as time goes on, filmmaking will become even more accessible to everybody.
So as Zoe mentioned in the beginning, Inez and I met through Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking, which I'm sure a lot of you probably have heard of. Also Vera, shout out to Vera, she's super wonderful and she created this organization. Like Zoe said, it's a feminist nonprofit organization committed to gender justice and filmmaking. And it's a creative and safe space where film and media makers connect, create, mentor, and inspire current and future generations. So it's really a pivotal part of Inez and I's life because we met at a Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking camp, but also now we are mentors and working alongside Vera. So it's kind of like a full circle moment.
Yeah, for sure. We've like, for both of us, it's such a huge part of like shaping who we are and who we want to be. And it's incredible to be able to exist in an environment where you're surrounded by people who share the same ideas and values as you, and who you can both help to teach and that you can learn from and sort of aspire to be, in the same way that we really look up to Vera. And I think that the existence of an organization like Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking is just another example of how accessible filmmaking is to this generation. It's because it's providing a place to learn and grow as filmmakers from a very early age. Like you can join any number of programs with Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking as a middle schooler, like I did. And it provides a really great opportunity to work as a team, to learn about filmmaking, the technical side of filmmaking, as well as social justice, and how you can intertwine the two, and how they have always been inherently connected. And it's like Jessie said, it's a very safe and accepting environment that is accessible to anybody who wants to join, really.
So Inez and I met in 2018, and it was at the 2018 January through like March, April, Making Media That Matters. And Making Media That Matters is one of the longer programs that Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking offers. So it's 8 weeks, and it's once every week, but you're there for a couple of hours. So I think ours was on Friday. I remember my mom driving me there with my other friend from high school. And when we got there, we learned about filmmaking and learned about social justice and everything. And we got put into groups. And fortunately, Inez and I were put into the same group. And we got to create a film, which is still probably Inez and I's favorite film we've ever made, even though we've made other ones. But yeah, this one from 2018, I think we're the most proud of it. And it was a really important moment because before then we were creating media, you know, like Inez said, these fun little news shows. I used to have like a glittery microphone and pretend I was a news reporter, or like have a bunch of like running around in the yard, like listening to Lady Gaga or something and making a music video. But I think this was the moment that both Inez and I realized how much of a difference you can actually make with filmmaking, and how it's such a vital asset in social justice. And with this program, the film that we made, we are incredibly proud of. And it really affected a lot of people who we showed it to, and they got the message. And I think that really resonated with me, being just a freshman in high school, seeing the difference that I could make in someone's life just by this idea that I had made with a couple of people that I had just met for the first time. So this camp is a great opportunity to, it sounds like I'm advertising for the camp, but it really is amazing. Everyone's welcome there. And the camps have changed since we've gone, because Inez and I are mentors now. But I'm glad that I got to meet Inez then.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you just said. It's crazy to think that this was 2018, so it was like 3 years ago, and I was in 8th grade and Jessie was a freshman. And, we were meeting for the first time. We didn't really know each other that well, which is crazy to think about. But we ended up on the same team. And yeah, it was really the first time that I realized that, working together with a crew who really understands you and knows you all have the common goal in mind is such an important experience. And it's really like nothing else. Like the feeling of knowing that you all have the same vision and you're all working towards it. You may like have different ideas, you may feel differently about it, but at the end of the day, you're all a crew. And this was the first time that I really, really felt that connection. And obviously, it's hard to work on a crew right now with COVID going on, but that's part of what I love so much about filmmaking. So now we're going to show the actual video itself. Before we do, I do want to say, I do want to give a quick content warning for, there's a prop gun, there's implied gun violence, and there's implied death. So if you don't want to watch any of that, you can mute real quick or just leave your computer and come back in like 4 minutes. But otherwise, yeah, let's go ahead and watch it.
Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day here in America as students everywhere are walking into school or out of it because of the latest trend taking the internet by storm.
Students are calling it #National Walkout Day. Now, not only liberals, but their children are using tragedies like the Parkland shooting to fuel their political agenda.
That they are.
Fun when Smelly Gun plays Private Eye, and you can have the same kind of fun with Mattel's Tommy Burst Detective Set. The Tommy Burst has automatic bolt action. Fire off a burst of 10 shots. Hold again, you're reloaded. Or fire single shots like a rifle. The Tommy Burst alone is $3. In the Detective Set, you also get the Snub Nose 38 and Snap Draw Shoulder Holster. The pistol fires ringy stick-em caps and shoots safe shooting shells. The exciting new Tommy Burst and includes wallet, bag, bags, and $10 wherever George needs. Some fun when Snubby Gun plays Private Eye, and you can have the same kind of fun with Mattel's Tommy Burst Detective Set. The Tommy Burst has automatic bolt action. Fire off a burst of 10 shots. Pull the bolt again, you're reloaded. Or fire single shots like a rifle. The Tommy Burst alone is $3. In the Detective Set, you also get the Snub Nose 38 and Snap Draw Shoulder Holster. The pistol fires greeny stick-em caps.
are praying for you.
Sending our thoughts and prayers. Sending our thoughts and prayers to
Sending our thoughts and prayers. Sending our thoughts and prayers to Kevin.
Sending our thoughts and prayers to Sending our thoughts and prayers to Harlan. Sending our thoughts and prayers to Heritage. Sending our thoughts and prayers.
Sending our thoughts and prayers to Roseburg.
Sending our thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Sending our thoughts and prayers to Richland.
Sending our thoughts and prayers to Parkland.
Yep. So that was what we produced during that first camp in the spring session of 2018, and it was directly following after the Parkland shooting. So it was a very heavy topic on everybody's mind. And, you know, as an 8th grader, or as a freshman in Jessie's case, a lot of the time you feel like with these issues that are going on that can directly affect you, you don't really have a voice in them. So producing this film was really mind-blowing for me. It really opened my eyes to realizing that I can use my voice to speak about social issues that matter to me and that affect me, and I can do it I can do it through my art and in a way that is meaningful to me and is meaningful to the people who watch it. All right.
So here, we're going to introduce you to a timeline of the films that Inez and I made together. So Thoughts and Prayers was the first one in 2018, as you guys just all saw. And like Inez said, this issue it's focused on young people. That's what school shootings, that's the demographic that it affects. And we see in the beginning the adults talking about it, when really it's an issue that affects young school children. And we included a lot of symbolism in this film. The balloons are all red, white, and blue, which are America's colors. There are 17 balloons because 17 people died in the shooting. And the desk that has the gun on it, the balloon is white because the majority of school shooters are white people. So we wanted to address many issues all at the same time and put it together with this symbolism and creativity through art. So this film will also always hold a special place in my heart. But that was the first film that we made together.
Yeah, I hadn't actually watched it in a while, so it was really shocking to see the little boy in the film is my younger brother. And I hadn't realized like how long ago that had been, that he was still shorter than me. So the next film that we worked on together was Two of a Kind, which was produced in the same year, in the fall session of Making Media That Matters. And this one was directed and co-written by me and co-written, shot and edited by Jessie, which is so much work. I don't know how you do it. And this was also very meaningful to us because it was a story about two queer teens just existing, which was something that we hadn't seen in the world yet. And so it's very important to me for that reason. And this particular film was actually included in the 2019 Hawaii International Film Festival Student Showcase. It was also shown at the Hawaii Book and Music Festival in 2019, and the Girls Make Movies Film Fest in 2018.
And I remember after the showing of that film, these two girls like ran up to us and they were like, "Did you make Two of a Kind?" And I was like, who's asking? But yes, I did. And they were like, "Can we take a photo with you?" Like, and I was like a sophomore at the time. And honestly, Inez and I were not very proud of this film because it didn't turn out the way that we expected. Where Thoughts and Prayers, it was such a strong start. We felt like we didn't do justice to this topic, but these two girls ran up and were so excited about seeing a movie about queer girls at a local film festival that they wanted to take a photo with us, even though they were probably the same age as us. So I'll always remember that story. The third film we made in 2019 is called A Kingdom at Crossroads, which we made for the Daniel K. Inouye Film Institute. It was a film competition. Inez and I won first place, which is super cool. This film, it was about how Hawaii has been a state for 50 years and what we should be expecting for the next 50 years. So Inez and I wanted to talk about the gentrification, and we wanted to talk about the rail and construction and talk about how Hawaii is still a kingdom. So it's basically a kingdom at crossroads, that we can either go one way towards, you know, sovereignty and more representation and rights for Native Hawaiian people, or we can go the other way. Sorry, I think I paused. We can go the other way on the crossroads to even more industrialization on these beautiful islands. So it's a very short film, but we are also very proud of it.
We are. And this was, I think, the first time that we had competed in a film competition together. And I think it was sort of a real moment of realization that, like, oh, we're like kind of good at this. like we can compete and win, and our films like matter to people, and people think that they're like worthy of winning awards. So it was a very big moment for us in that way, for sure. The most recent one that we worked on together is Pu'ohonua, A Closer Look at Kimi Hau'oli's Kama'aina, which came out last year. We were actually hired to produce this, which was the first film that we'd been hired together to work on, that we hadn't, you know, taken on by ourselves, but rather been offered the opportunity to make it. And it was produced in association with Hawaii Council for the Humanities, actually with Aiko, and the Honolulu Rainbow Film Festival. And it's just a response to the film Kama'aina by Kimi Hau'oli that came out last year, to sort of encourage people to watch it and to analyze the themes that are present there, themes of belonging as a queer teen, as a houseless youth in Hawaii, and as a Native Hawaiian.
So here, these are some pictures of Inez and I as mentors. So we were mentors at the 2019 Making Media That Matters. So top left is Inez, and bottom right is me, and we were helping some of the participants with editing. We are the same age as many of the participants, so it's a really awesome environment to be in, where you can have a role model, but they're kind of the same as you. Like, there's no hierarchy in Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking, which is what I really love. There is not like, I'm your boss, and we're not like, we're the mentors, and you guys are the participants, you are the students. The philosophy is kind of, we're all learners. Like, if you're afraid to start doing something, then you'll probably never do it. So I know, at least for me, and I think same for Inez, we were kind of nervous about being mentors, because we were like, how much do we really know?
Yeah.
So when we started doing it, there's stuff I didn't know, but guess what? Everybody's learning. We're always learning. Learning never stops. So being a mentor has really provided the opportunity for me to not only lead others, but to learn even more.
Yeah, and it's definitely also made me more confident as a filmmaker myself, because like, if I know something well enough to teach it to others, then I probably know it pretty well. And so these camps have continued, even though we're going through COVID, obviously. They've been online the last 4. The most recent one, or the most recent ones, have all focused on specific social justice issues. So we've had one focusing on environmental justice, reproductive justice, and most recently we had a racial justice camp that we both mentored for. And it was a really incredible experience because the participants came up with some really incredible films. And it was a really good reminder of what Jessie said, that not only are we mentors and we're teaching the more technical sides of filmmaking, but we're also here to learn and improve, not only as filmmakers, but also as activists.
Which leads us to our ending segment, kind of ending, don't worry, we're not completely done, but kind of rounding out. The big idea is the accessibility that Inez and I have had. Having the opportunity to learn these skills for free and in a safe environment has allowed us to become aware of our privilege and how we can help create positive change for the world by advocating through film. So that is like the big three that we have learned from this experience.
Yeah, and not only have we gained these skills, but we also hope that everybody else who participates in these camps, and not even just participates in the camps, but anybody else who has that same experience as us of having access to filmmaking and access to these types of programs that encourage that that intersection of filmmaking and activism. Because they're good skills to have, whether you're going to be a filmmaker and you plan to continue that work, or whether you do something else with your life and decide to show your advocacy in another way. It's just a solid set of skills to have. And hopefully the majority of people in our generation will have those skills. And we'll see more of that awareness and advocacy and hopefully representation in media of all forms going forward.
And what Vera has taught us is that if there is no safe environment or you don't feel welcome anywhere, then make your own, because you don't want those people in your life anyway. And I mean, I don't think Vera could ever have imagined how many lives that she has impacted by making Hawai'i Women in filmmaking. She's always told us that people want to make it seem like, oh, this is such a unique thing, like no one's ever doing anything like it. But she's like, no, we are doing something about it. And every day you have to stand up and we're doing something about it. We're creating these films. We are fostering these amazing relationships and mentoring people our age. And it's just an amazing opportunity, and could not give Vera a bigger shout out because she's the absolute best. And the environment that she's created is something that I am going to miss, because I feel like when I go off to college, there may not be environments as welcoming as the ones that she has created.
Yeah. And it's especially incredible for both of us and for any kids who, you know, dreamt about seeing themselves represented in like the film industry, to have been dreaming about that as a younger kid, and then to be a part of making that a reality is really surreal. And it's just a realization of the dreams that we've had, and hopefully that we will be able to continue to work towards in the future.
And we have gotten the amazing opportunity to actually be interns for the 3rd season of Real Wahine of Hawaii, which is a local TV show. It has episodes for each woman. It focuses on local filmmakers in Hawaii. And it's amazing being able to work with a bunch of women and being able to be taught. The photo me there, we did an editing workshop with Shirley Thompson, and getting these skills in a non-intimidating place for free. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing opportunity. And I'm working with Erin Lau, who is actually the subject of an episode in season 2. So Inez and I are both paired with a director, and we get to make a film about a certain woman in Hawaii. So
yeah, and it's especially amazing because this is sort of exactly the representation that we all hoped for when we were younger. Like, not only are we getting to help produce this show or this episode about or with a crew of people like us that we feel reflected in, who share similar like ideas and values, but also we get to make it about an amazing local female filmmaker, who we can look up to, we can aspire to be, we can be inspired by. So it's a really incredible opportunity. That's, you know, a result of how accessible Hawai'i Women in filmmaking is here in Hawaii.
where are they now? We are here with you guys, but Inez is continuing to work as a filmmaking mentor and intern for Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking. They are also participating in multiple local film competitions for students, and recently produced and edited a mini documentary about Aupuni Space for the 2021 Olelo Youth Exchange. Kind of hurt that Inez is growing up and doing all these films without me, but it's nice to see them, you know, starting to do things on their own.
Yeah, keep an eye out for that one. We'll find out more about it in April. Oh my God, it is April. Later in April. Jessie is also continuing to work as a filmmaking mentor and intern for Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking. And they will graduate from Radford High School in May, and are awaiting responses from a bunch of different colleges that they've applied to, including the University of British Columbia, where they've applied for a major in film production, which is really cool. And I'm really excited to see all the amazing work that I know you're gonna do, even though I'll miss you. I know that wherever you do end up going, you'll succeed. Which brings us to the end of our talk. Thank you all so much for showing up. We weren't really sure if anybody would, to be honest. But thank you for being here. Thank you for having us. And if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them and answer them. I will stop sharing now.
Yes, thank you so much to everybody for listening. It means a lot to us.
Okay, then. The first question that came up from Cynthia Franklin. First was a comment. You two are so amazing and brilliant and inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is, and can we see another of your films during the Q&A? So clearly somebody wanted.
Do you have the links, Jessie?
We can probably put the links in the chat.
Yeah,
which will be, yeah, it'll be run more smoothly on your screen if you can watch it personally than if we screen share it. But thank you so much for the kind comments.
Yeah, I'll put them in the chat.
Okay, and we also, I think this is coming in from Utah. Hokulani Aiko is saying your work is so incredibly impressive. Hoku, are you actually in Utah or are you here at the moment? Yes, Utah. At which point Cindy also remarked, the aunties are here.
Hi, Auntie Hoku.
And Mahealani Ahia saying, your presentation was so inspiring. Mahalo. Now, while you're looking for a link, does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Okay, this is from Lane Davey. Amazing presentation. I was wondering how you think education values filmmaking and alternative forms of media. What's your experience in school been in response to your interest in film? You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking over the question. Personally, most of my filmmaking has happened outside of school, because as probably most people know here, the school system doesn't really favor the arts. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of support for filmmaking in school until very recently. I have one class in high school, digital media production, where we learn a little bit more about the technical aspects of filmmaking. And that's actually where how I produced the mini documentary. Recently, I was working with somebody in my class to produce it for the competition. So I definitely have more of a support system now for filmmaking in school than I have before.
Similar to Inez, everything that I've done is outside of school. My school is very concerned with our football team, even though I don't think we've won a game in about 2 years. That's okay. But so much so that when Inez and I actually submitted the film to the Daniel K. Inouye Institute, we put it underneath Hawai'i Women in Filmmaking, because we were supposed to have a mentor, and it was like, put your teacher, because it was supposed to be a school thing. And we both didn't have media teachers. So we put Vera, another shout out. But yes, I think that's what's so important about these camps, is learning a bunch of skills that I didn't get offered in school.
Zoe Sprott, our graduate assistant, offered the same a kind of Me Too comment, saying same at UH, which is sort of also a shout out to the fact that this is co-sponsored by the Academy for Creative Media. So it's an interesting dynamic. We got 2 questions that are essentially the same one, so I'll put them together, but they're coming from Cynthia Franklin and Mahel Aniahia. And basically the question is, can you share ideas for future film projects? If budget was not an issue, what do you dream of making? What kinds of films do you dream of making? Genre, subjects, do you have any passion projects?
I can go first for this one. This is actually a point that was brought up while I was working with my mentor for the internship, Shirley Thompson, who interviewed a local filmmaker on the Big Island, who mentioned that there's a lot of really talented female documentarians here in Hawaii, but there's not a lot of people who aren't men creating narrative feature films. Which is interesting, and it's definitely a question of access to funding. So it's kind of hard to wrap my head around if budget wasn't an issue, because it always is, and like all the stuff that we've produced has been like with a budget of 0. So it's always been sort of a limitation for us, but I think that definitely I hope to someday produce at least one a narrative feature film. And obviously it would be really cool to have it be some kind of like big blockbuster, like a Marvel or Star Wars, without actually being Marvel or Star Wars, that I can help to write, and that I can see myself and other people like me represented in.
Yeah, I recently got a grant from the ACLU, and being handed money to make a film, I'm like, what do I do with this? Because I'm so used to making films for free. So something I learned that is important is to pay yourself and pay the people that are helping you. So I would definitely want to use my privilege, because I know that I'm white, and I would love to uplift other voices and give them the money, because I would love to see more representation. But I would definitely love to see something kind of like, I feel like there's a lot of dumb movies about straight people out there, so I kind of want like a dumb lesbian movie, because I feel like lesbian is still seen as like a dirty word when really it's not. So I'd love to just see like an action movie where like maybe the 2 main characters are like enemies, and then in the end like they're in love and like take over the government or something. So definitely something that I hope would happen in real life, but that's okay, it'll be a fiction movie. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of ideas right now, just trying to get into college. So
that actually reminded me that I do have like a Pinterest board and a couple of Google Docs that I've had like forever about like a lesbian art heist movie, which, maybe that'll be my passion project for senior year or something, because I think that could be really fun. A local lesbian art heist movie. There you go.
Okay, the next question is coming from Hokulani Akau. You mentioned your 2018 film was really well received. What kind of reception have your films had? How is the feedback you've received? And how does the feedback you receive inform your work or approach to your work?
Oh, all right. I'd say in general, we've been very lucky with the feedback that we've received, because working with Hawai'i Women Filmmaking, we have such a strong support system, and they're really good about, you know, surrounding us with people who want the same sort of representation goals that we want. So whenever we've shown the films, we've usually dealt with praise, which is really helpful, but probably ultimately unrealistic. So going forward, I at least hope to get a little more constructive criticism.
And I'd have to admit, this is a problem I have in real life, is a lot of adults like me, but people my own age don't. So I would have to say that a lot of the films, like not a lot of young people I feel are seeing them. It's kind of the same audience, as Inez said. So the original question was, you mentioned it. Yeah, so the reception has been very nice. But the feedback that we've received has mostly been kind of like, wow, young people, the youth. So Inez and I kind of joke around about that, how like, we are the youth.
Yeah, that's what we always get. I was like, wow, it's amazing to see such young people, which is like, it's nice to hear, because it's a good reminder that, yeah, what we're doing matters, and like is meaningful to people and is inspiring other people. But also it's like, there are so many people our age who are doing the same kind of work, and I've been really trying to make connections with other people, other filmmakers my age, whether it's in Hawaii or not, so that, you know, I can form a support system that's not just made up of people who are constantly telling me, oh, you're doing so well for someone so young. Like, you know, I want to have like peers in the field that I want to go into.
Okay, there was another question that came up from Jean, who asked, how can we access the recording of this program? Zoe, could you explain what we're doing as far as that's concerned?
Sure. The recording is going to be available on YouTube, and I'll put the link back in the chat one more time. And that should be up in just a few days.
I think Jessie just put the link to Thoughts and Prayers in the chat, and I think the other ones will follow shortly.
Yep.
Yeah.
How long is A Kingdom at Crossroads?
It's probably like 2 minutes long. It's very short.
Okay, what I'm
It
doing,
was prompted.
and if you're okay, you'd be okay with showing it or having that link now, or would you rather have people watch it later?
I'm fine with showing it now. Do we have the link, Jessie?
Yep.
All right. Do you want one of us to share a screen, or?
Yeah, that'd probably work the best way.
All right, I can share it.
So like I said, this film was, it was for a competition. So it had a prompt to go with it. We had to use an artifact from the Daniel K. Inouye Institute and somehow connect it to where Hawaii is going to be in the next 50 years. There's no sound, Inez, because you're muted, I think.
Okay, sorry.
Much debate.
On August 21st, 1959, Hawaii was officially named the 50th state of the U.S. Statehood was the subject of much debate. Many were in support of statehood, such as Samuel Wilder King, who wrote a letter in 1937 urging for Hawaii to be treated as a state. Today, that letter is a part of the Daniel K. Inouye collection. However, there were many who protested statehood, largely Native Hawaiians supporting Hawaii's sovereignty. 60 years later, Hawaii stands at a crossroads. Issues like overdevelopment, the rail, and most prominently, the 30-meter telescope have made the discussion of Hawaii's future more relevant than ever. Today, we are in a position to make real change for Hawaii's future. We can choose to be complicit in the destruction of the place that we call home, or we can step up and take action towards a brighter future for Hawaii and for the world. In only 40 years, we will reach the centennial of Hawaii's statehood. Where will Hawaii be then?
Very short, but yeah.
Yep. And if you want to watch it by yourself, or again, the link is in the chat, I think.
Same with thoughts and prayers.
Is that all of the questions? I've been keeping up.
Yeah, I've actually got one, if that's okay. About 10 years ago, I got asked in conjunction with those books, The Value of Hawaii, to go and talk to a group of high school students who've been brought together at the Richardson School of Law to be encouraged to think about law down the road. And trying to encourage them to think big and think about being productive and so on and so forth. And before I started talking, I asked, there were about maybe 20, 25 students there, and I asked them what they were thinking about as their futures, expecting that there would be a fair number that would be law and various other things. Every single one of them said they wanted to be in media. And I was thinking about that, Inez, when you started off by saying, when you saw that blockbuster or you saw that earlier film, you knew that somehow or other that's what you wanted to do. Now, you're putting that together with advocacy, but I think it is fairly clear that if you look at a lot of media and whatever, it really does look like the smartest people we have on earth are all working in media. While at the same time, it seems like some of the stupidest people we have on earth are actually in politics or are actually out in the world. So one of the things I was sort of worried about at the time was all the smartest people are moving over into the means rather than engaging with the end. So this is a big question and sort of unfair, but I'd just like to ask both of you how you see your media and film interests and passions fitting together with a sense of advocacy or action in the world, because it's clearly important to both of you.
I think it's really interesting that you bring that point up, because I think right there we can see a direct result of what we were talking about earlier about growing up surrounded by media and the access to make it, as well as just simply existing within a society that places so much emphasis on like productivity and work. People are obviously like, not everybody dreams of working, not everybody dreams of labor. We're gonna gravitate towards occupations that let us express ourselves, let us do things that we enjoy, like media. At least for me, like obviously I didn't like go see like some big political activism film and be like, oh, that's what I want to do with my life. No, I saw a Marvel movie. I saw something that was showing in the theaters and I was like, that looks really fun. I want to help do that. And you know, now that I've sort of worked towards that, I can see the ways in which advocacy is connected with media, and that I personally can connect to my art with my advocacy and my social activism. But yeah, it's interesting that you point that out. And I think that if we do want to have more people, you know, not necessarily going into media, but also working in other fields, it's important to sort of discuss why that is, why why so many people are unhappy in those fields.
Yeah, I really appreciate this question too. And I feel like when I was young and thinking about making movies, it was like, you think about like Western movies, or you think about like you're in space, or yeah, you mostly think of blockbusters. But the older I got, watching documentaries and films on real people that don't normally have a spotlight have been really inspiring, and they prove to be educating. And it is fair to say that you know, I do wish that I could be like a lawyer, or I could be the president, or wish that was my passion. But I feel like doing filmmaking and shedding light onto these issues, more people are probably going to hear about it through a more accessible lens, such as filmmaking, and I can post it on YouTube, or I can put it in a theater or something, versus the people that are very interested in a political agenda or politics. I feel like it's very accessible, having a link and being able to show somebody in Hawaii something that's going on, like in France, or something that's going on in Japan, like that we normally wouldn't even know about. So I think that being able to use the creativity that I've gained and being able to use this medium, I think that I'd like to go around the world and just meet more people and learn how I can help them with the skills that I have. I'm not going to pretend to be somebody that I can't and try to go into a profession that I'm not good at. I feel like I'm good at this profession. I have these skills and I can make a real change with it. And I can advocate for people that maybe don't have the same privilege or accessibility to the equipment that I do. So that's how I see it. But it definitely, my view of filmmaking has completely changed from when I was young to now.
Definitely. And while I'm very flattered that you mentioned that it seems like all the smart people are going into media, I think it's not fair to say that there are not also very dumb people in media, and that those people have been the people who have gone on and become president, even, or something like that, who knows. But yeah, you know, there's geniuses and in every field, but the ones in media just tend to be louder, I'd say.
I just have to put in here that the comment that Inez just made does reflect the opinions of the Center for Biographical Research. Hokalani Aiko has offered another comment, which is, what I like most about your film is how y'all take an artifact that was probably intended to be celebratory and then use it to raise critically important political questions. I also appreciate how you leave the audience with a question instead of trying to offer answers. I think that's a reference to the Inouye competition, yeah, and using the letter that Samuel Wilder King wrote.
Thank you. I think maybe that's why we won, because we sat down and we were like, kind of like in school when you get a project and they're like, okay, end global warming in like science class, and they're like giving it to 7th graders. Like everyone's always asking these giant questions to kids. So we saw this opportunity to look at it and be like, actually, we're going to ask you a question. So we kind of reversed it on the audience. But thank you for that kind comment.
Thank you. And I think a lot of the people who we were competing with did feel probably pressured to sort of reflect that celebratory tone, like, oh, it's 50 years of statehood, yay, let's take a look at all these artifacts from, you know, the colonization of Hawaii, and let's celebrate 50 years and 50 more to come. And we were just kind of like, are we gonna have to pretend to be excited about that in order to succeed at this competition and in this field in general? And at the end of the day, I think we both kind of decided, like, no, we're not gonna compromise like what we believe in order to have a chance at winning. And at the end, it worked out because we did win, while maintaining and standing by our views.
Any other questions or comments? Okay then. Thank you very much. We've been looking forward to this for quite some time. I'm going to avoid telling you that you did a wonderful job and you're so young, just because it doesn't seem to be appropriate. So I would just like to have the people who are attending here today join me in thanking the two filmmakers we've featured today who have been talking about their work.